Hey friends, I want to show you how to read this article and take notes using this note-taking sheet that I have posted in your folder for Schoology for today. Now you're going to notice that this piece of paper actually is the same on the left side as it is on the right side. So you can feel free to cross out one side. You only need to complete your notes for physical changes and chemical changes. Okay, now we have one article that's about physical changes, and I'm going to read it to you, and then we'll take some notes, and then we'll read about chemical changes. Physical properties can change without changing the substance. That seems like a main idea. Something important to remember. Physical properties can change without changing the substance. For example, if you rip a piece of paper in half, the paper has gone through a physical change. The paper looks different, but it is still paper. The paper did not change into another substance. Physical changes include cutting, bending, tearing, and changing states of matter. So reading that, I'm going to go ahead and write down my main idea, which is physical properties can change without changing the substance. Now, physical properties are things like the shape that something has, its texture, its temperature, its color. Things that you can observe with your five senses are physical properties. Physical properties can change without changing the substance. And the example they gave is ripping or tearing a piece of paper. So I'm going to put EX for example, ripping a paper. Another example that popped into my head is bending a paper clip. That's something that drives teachers bananas when you have paper clips and you find them around your room bent into little shapes because kids have found them and are turning them into sculptures. Bending a paper clip, that's another example of a physical change. Getting a haircut. When you cut your hair, you haven't changed it into a different substance. It's still hair, but its physical property, its length, has changed. Okay, let's keep reading. When matter changes state, it goes through a physical change. When matter changes state, it goes through a physical change. Melting happens when a solid becomes a liquid, like when a popsicle melts. Freezing occurs when a liquid becomes a solid at a low temperature. Okay, I'm gonna pause there. I don't like to read too much before stopping to take notes. It's easier for me to process the information I'm reading if I pause after every few sentences and write down what I'm understanding. So when matter changes state, a change in state is a physical change. Now, this is something interesting. Like, this is basically saying that when something goes from a solid to a liquid, that is a physical and not a chemical change. If it goes from a liquid to a gas, that is a physical and not a chemical change. If it goes from a gas to a solid, still a physical change and not a chemical one. And then it gives us some examples of different types of matter changing state, like melting, freezing, evaporation. It tells us that evaporation occurs when a liquid becomes a gas, like when boiling water. That makes sense because when you boil a pot of water, you can see the steam coming up. That's water evaporating. Condensation is when a gas becomes a liquid, like when droplets form on a can of cold soda. Changing state of matter is a physical change because, okay, here's a word because, that seems important. Whenever I see the word because, I'm like, oh, they're going to explain the why of something, so it's important for me to pay attention to that. Changing state of matter is a physical change because the substance stays the same. For example, when water freezes, it becomes ice. It is still water. The substance doesn't change. Its appearance, which is part of its physical properties, does change. Okay, so I'm almost out of space, but I'm just gonna squeeze in a few of these examples of matter changing states. So matter can change states. I have this whole other box over here. Matter can change states by melting, evaporating, freezing, condensing. Did I get everything? Melting, freezing, evaporating, condensing. Yes. Okay. These are all physical changes. Not chemical ones.